Howdy, everybody. I'm Alex BACEY. I'm the guitar player and songwriter for Amidst. We just released an album. It's out now on Tip Records. It's called Requiem. It's our second full-length album. Give it a listen. Tell us what you think. Tell us if you like it, and especially tell us if you think it sucks. And we'll be sure to say, "Go fuck yourself." No.
That's the best intro ever, mate. Well done. Thanks for joining us.
Happy to be here. No, it's just funny. I just read a review of somebody, like most of our reviews of this album have been super positive and it's been great. It's been pretty well received. And then somebody sent me a review directly that they wrote that was just kind of like a slap in the face. And I was like, all right, okay, well, that's fine.
Well, why do they feel the need to send it to you directly if it's a
I
bad
know.
one?
I don't know, but here
That's
it
just
is.
rubbing it in.
I know. You caught me on that Monday, I guess. No, it's okay.
Nice, bro. Nice. Now, as you say, Ominous through and released your sophomore album, Requiem, back on May the 9th. So it's been about a month now. So aside from the dickhead before, how's the response been to it?
Yeah, it's been great. I'm trying to go through the reviews now and just make sure that, I try to give everyone the flowers for taking the time to review the album and whatnot, and even give it a listen. Like, we appreciate all the support and everyone that's given us the kind feedback. It's so far, I mean, a lot of positive feedback, so I'm stoked.
Yeah, cool. So can you dive into the album a bit more deeper from a musical point of view and tell us what you're going for this time around?
Yeah, I think, and it's funny because in that negative review, I don't want to keep bringing it up, but I think one of the things that I tried to avoid was the sound like another 100 other bands kind of comment, right?
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people so far have said that it sounds unique, it sounds different. It's got kind of a plethora of genres mixed into one, and obviously, like, at its core, it's like a technical death metal album. But I personally wrote most of the music in like a specific headspace, like the time of the time that a lot of the songs were actually written. A lot of, like, we had a lot of chaos going on between all of us, individually and as a band. And if you look into the history, I could explain a little bit. We had a vocalist change in between our last album and this album. So now we have Crystal, who, it's her first project, first album she's ever recorded. And I think she did a great job. And it kind of, it plays into the trying to sound unique. Yeah. And not even because we're like, oh, she's a girl, she sounds unique, blah, blah, blah. She's one of my best friends. But that definitely helps, right? So it kind of gives it its own character. And yeah, it's a lot of like emotion that so I guess maybe that's why when somebody says we sound like 100 other bands, that I take offense to it.
Yeah, because you deliberately tried not to.
Yeah, right? But if you think so, feel free to tell me and I'll just say, all right, that's cool.
So we mentioned this is your second album, bro. So what lessons that you learned from your debut Amidst Voices at Echo and Stone did you take into this album?
Yeah, a lot. I think it's so hard because, like I said, we had a vocalist change. I think there's so much that goes into, like, just how you take advantage of a release per se, and all the kind of like numbers and everything, reviews and everything that kind of goes into releasing an album, and what you're supposed to do before, leading up to release day and after. I thought I had a handle on it the first time, but this time around, it still kind of like kicked me in the ass. And it's a lot of managing. It's basically like being a project manager and dealing with a lot of side stuff that was hoping to have a little bit more support around this time. But, again, with the different vocalist change, it was it was just tough. It was tough to get a handle on everything. And so, like you said, we're a month out almost from the release, and the fact that we're still able to talk about it is fantastic to me, because the more we can spread it out over my day job, the better, So.
True that. You released a couple of singles. You had Staring into the Abysm and Seeds of Entropy. So just say that's all someone's heard of the album. Is that a good sonic representation of that whole thing, or is it just bits and pieces?
I think it's definitely bits and pieces. I think Seeds of Entropy is the first song that I wrote for this album it's basically a direct continuation of the last song of our last album. So if you kind of go through the last song, it ends with like a piano thing, then the new album comes in with the piano thing. And it's kind of like just really again, a continuation. It plays into a lot of the same, like, what's the word I'm looking for? Basically like chords and melodies, a lot of the same motifs that I used for in the first album. So, and then Staring into the Abysm was a song that I intended to be instrumental, but then everyone fought me on it and then added lyrics. And I'm glad they did because it turned out way sick. Turned out way sick. But no, I think, if there's a few other songs like Eternal and Architect of Undoing that take things into like a completely different area. And, they're both a little bit longer and just kind of, it's more of a journey. Seeds and Staring are kind of like a direct, like hit you in the face kind of attack. And Architects, a lot of the album does that, but I think Architects and Eternal just have more elements that play into it that are sonically pleasing to hear.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up the piano intro, mate, because I love the way the album starts with that. It's almost ambient and soothing, and then it just gets crushed the fuck out of really quick. So that was actually following on from the first album, was it?
Yeah, I had used essentially like a snippet of that piano piece at the end, the very end of the last album. Like it fades in super quiet at the very end. Yeah.
That explains it then. Yeah, because I was just listening to it and I was going, I thought I was told this was a death metal band, and then it's just going fucking boom. And I'm like, yep, they are.
Yeah. Good. We lulled you into it. It's important to me, at least, because and a lot of the reviews that I'm reading too, it's like, oh, it's like balls to the wall, a killer, and that's all good and fine, but it can be, especially like if you go see a band live, it can be tough, right? To sit through like 30, 45 minutes of just like hammer it out, pound you in the face death metal. So,
So it adds that little element there just to split it up a little bit.
It's a little breathing room. You can't mosh for like 45 minutes. We're old,
Tell me about it. Now, you mentioned the new singer a couple of times. Like, her name is Crystal Rose, which it's a beautiful name, but it does not reflect how she sings at all, mate. Like, tell us a bit more about her and what she brings to the album.
Yeah, absolutely. She's been a great friend of mine for a long time now, so I'm very stoked that she's a part of this project. It's her first ever actual band. And it's her first ever actual album. Yeah. And so she, in that regard, she was very like malleable, right? So it's like she didn't come in with all these kind of set in her ways about how she likes to go about practice or recording, first time really recording aside from. So we had her as a guest vocalist on our first album, the third track called Deception. She did a couple of lines in that song, and that's how I knew she was great. I recorded her vocals in our practice studio, and the longer story behind it is we had a previous guitar player, another good friend of mine, Petter, who's still a friend. We just had to change part ways. That's his girlfriend is Crystal, so
right.
But, bunch of ties to the band already. He played in another band that had a room in the same practice studio we were in, and she would just go in there and scream her fucking head off to like Shadow of Intent or something. She did like all these covers, and so we would hear her from down the hall and be like, holy shit, is that Crystal? And so eventually, like, when it came time we had to part ways with our previous vocalist, it was not a hard decision for me to just say like, why don't we just use her? I mean, it's like I said, obviously it plays into like being a little bit different, whatever, but she's fucking awesome. So she did a great job,
Yeah, nice. Bands change singers all the time, bro, but it's not often you hear a band go from a male to a female singer. So did that make it any more difficult of a transition? Like, the music would have to be in touch different, wouldn't it?
Like I said, she was very malleable. So I think we had when it came time to like record and do all that stuff, I think she kind of like threw all of whatever ideas she had out the window anyways. So obviously, I mean, she doesn't sound like a dude. Well, I don't know. Some people say she does sound like a guy, but but yeah, for sure. And it makes, I think not only does it make the relationship between all of us a little bit easier, it's a little bit less egocentric now. I think, her expectations too, where she was basically thinking she had to sound like Adam, her previous vocalist or something. Even when we go to play these other songs live, because she hasn't actually even played like a full show yet. But if if that's the case, it's like kind of like, no, well, Arch Enemy had a male vocalist before, and then they transitioned to a female vocalist, right? And look at where they're at now. So, and there's probably many other situations, but yeah, maybe there was like a little bit of a stigma at first, but I think we all kind of squashed it. It's not really, I don't know. I think she's good enough, and I think she has a lot of untapped potential to just kind of be like one of the best, in my opinion. I don't even think we did the best job on this album capturing like what she's really capable of. So album 3, it's gonna be sick.
Nice. And how about
Yeah.
the fans, mate? Like fans that have been with you from the start, have they embraced the change like you hope they would?
As far as I'm aware, and if you know, if people haven't, I haven't really like noticed anything. And if they do, then I don't, who the fuck cares, you know?
Yeah,
So,
good attitude.
you know, it's we again love the support. Thank you for supporting us. If you really feel like if it's that big of a deal, then I don't know what to tell you. We are an opinionated bunch of people, though, aren't we? The metal folk.
Yeah,
So,
more so than anyone else in the world I've found, bro.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah, yeah. But you know, and again, like if you are hearing this and you were an old supporter and didn't necessarily like her, I encourage you to listen to the full album because I think as it goes, I think she gets better and better. So
I'll second that too, because if you take the gender out of the equation completely, she's just a fucking great singer. She's at the end of the day, she's a great singer.
Brad, I'm glad you think so. That's awesome.
Nice. So have you got any shows coming up, bro, that you want to plug?
We are in the process of putting them together, but it's been a very interesting situation, to say the least. It's tough for us. We all work full-time jobs, and now that I moved to San Diego, so I'm about an 8-hour drive from where everyone else in the band lives.
Okay.
But they can still go practice in San Jose where they're at and whatnot. So the goal is to get some stuff happening by like September, October, and see kind of where it goes from there. I think we'll have, some tours probably lined up for next year. And at this rate, it's just, man, like every band is booking tours like 6 months out, it feels like.
At least,
so
yeah.
Yeah, it's just kind of tough to try to like squeeze something in there and, yeah. So hopefully next year at the very least.
Nice. So where's the best place for people to keep in touch with Ominous Ruin and what you're doing and where you're going?
Yeah, Instagram is probably our most active thing. You can message us. We'll say hi. Facebook is kind of turned into what it's turned into. It's kind of tough to use these days. And, honestly, Instagram is probably the best place. We're kind of all over here and there. YouTube, we have a TikTok. We don't use it. In general, like I said, Instagram is probably the best. We have all of our stuff for sale at Bandcamp. That's where the record label Willowtip has everything. The vinyls turned out sick, and we'll post most of our updates pretty much across all platforms, and try not to be obnoxious about it.
Fantastic, Alex. All right, bro. Well, thanks for your time, bro. It's been a pleasure speaking with you. The album Requiem is out now, and it is a brutal slab of metal, mate. Well done, and best of luck with it.
Kris, I appreciate you. Appreciate everyone that listens, and thank you for having me.